This is DIY Cyber Guy with David W. Schrofer. Every week, he will show you how cybersecurity can be as easy as locking up your house at night. Now, here is your host, David W. Schrofer.
Welcome back, everybody, to DIY Cyber Guy. This is episode 87, and it's a hair on fire 2 out of 5, meaning that this is stuff you should know about, especially for people who are in any way responsible for a network. Small and medium-sized businesses, large enterprises, or even just your home network with a few kids at home, and you're just trying to keep your network safe and out of trouble. And the topic is AI. So anybody who's using AI, and if you're not, you're probably not listening to this episode, really should pay attention to this, because AI really does change your security footprint and the security vulnerability of your network and of your systems. So the workplace has changed. Home usage has changed faster than most cybersecurity teams can adapt to it. I think we all know that. According to Microsoft's Secure Employee Access Report, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes, and I'm quoting now, the rise of cloud, distributed networks, and SaaS, software as a service, makes it easier for employees to work from anywhere and connect. But generative AI is once again reshaping work and collaboration, creating even more access points, more workload identities, and more access permissions. And all of that adds up, and I'm not quoting now, but all of that adds up to more security vulnerabilities. I don't know if you knew this or not, and I try to keep track of this number. We're currently over 300 billion passwords in circulation today. And AI is only expanding that attack surface. And we've talked about that many, many times on this podcast, how the password itself is an attack surface for the threat actors. In other words, the bad guys can, if they find your password on a list, whether they've exploited another company or just bought the list off the deep web or whatever the case may be, there are ways of figuring out your password. And of course, the good old fashioned spear phishing of just trying to figure it out. The name of your cat, the name of your dog. Again, we've talked about this. Don't do that. That's not a good password. But the fact that we're all using AI is all of a sudden ballooning the number of apps that we're using and the way that we're using those apps. The Microsoft report is basically a survey of multiple enterprise executives who said, and 94% of those executives said that they experienced an identity and access network management incident in the last year. 94% said they experienced an incident that was related to AI. And as one chief information security officer put it, complexity is the enemy of security. And you may have heard me say that before, and lots of people have said that as well, but that's really true. Complexity is the enemy of enterprise security, of home security, of network security. Any type of security really becomes more risky the more complexity that you put into it. So AI, it's great, and we've talked about this before. It's accelerating productivity, but it's also accelerating risk. And understanding how it's accelerating risk as it's accelerating productivity, whether you're talking about the family you're managing at home or the employees you're managing at work, it's something you've got to understand. So Microsoft's research shows that 57% of organizations are already seeing security incidents linked to AI usage. That's incredible, because AI, as we all know, is not that old. Really, it's become more widely used only in the last 2, maybe 3 years, depending on how much you are an early adopter or your organization is an early adopter of that technology. 57% is nothing to sneeze at. That's a huge number, directly attributable to AI usage. So here with me to talk about this risk and all these other topics today is Neil Gad. Neil is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at RealVNC. He is a global cybersecurity strategist who has spent the last 2 decades helping enterprises modernize identity architecture and bridge the gap between security and innovation. Welcome, Neil.
David, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. I'm looking forward to the conversation. So first question, can you give me an example of an actual security issue that was caused by AI?
Sure. The typical use case here is an employee in an organization has access to a system and they upload a bunch of sensitive data to a Gen AI tool in the spirit of them being more productive and getting some insights distilled out of ChatGPT or another tool. They inadvertently upload a bunch of user data or data that's from a source system that they have access to. And great, within 30 seconds, it gives them the insight that they want neatly, but
Right.
they've accidentally exposed the user details of a bunch of their customers, for example, or they've taken a load of IT support tickets and the AI has ingested those. So, uh, firstly, that's exposing sensitive data in a way that it shouldn't.
Hmm.
It's also then potentially being used to train those models. So that data then is gone and it's uploaded to a cloud to a data center somewhere, and can't easily be recovered. So
So,
this
so
happens
there,
quite a
there's
lot.
there's a couple things I want to unpack there. For one, there are obviously different AI tools. Some AI tools like built into Google Docs, for example, that will take a ton of data and extrapolate and turn that document from 10,000 words into 500 words. There's also, read.ai, which is transcribing this episode, and lots of other more widely available tools like Google Gemini or
Sure.
ChatGPT, of course. So, is there a difference between how those different products are, or the different level of security exposure that is created based on the product that you use?
I think most or all of those products will have some kind of upper level, like an enterprise or pro level, where the data can remain private. So if you're using the lower tiers of ChatGPT or another tool, typically you're allowing it to ingest and use your data for its training purposes. If you
Okay.
buy one of the upper tiers, you typically then will get your own instance where the data is not exposed more widely than your own organization. So, for example, if you're in the software engineering industry, as we are at RealVNC, we use cautiously AI tools to help us with our software engineering, but in a way that does not expose our source code to the models, because everything stays within our environment. So
And
if you're on one
we've
of those upper tiers, then it's much more secure.
Okay, and we've talked about having proprietary data, or rather training AI in a way that doesn't let that information out into the public many times in this podcast. So I'd really like to emphasize that point. So it's if one of the things I've said many times is if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So if you're using a free version of any of these, it's taking all of that information as much as possible and it's using it to train its core large language model or its core training to make
Right.
the whole product better. So it really sounds like, especially if you're talking about using AI to help with code, using AI to help with security tickets, using AI to help even with documents that refer to sensitive client information. You're a law firm and you're talking about a criminal case that you're representing or whatever that might be. Putting that into AI could expose it unless you are using a professional version and you have set up that professional version not to share the
Right.
information with a large language model. So walk me through how if you're a CEO listening to this podcast and your head just exploded because you're not sure if you did or didn't, how would you check very quickly your ChatGPT instance or your Google Gemini instance, or even if you're using Jira or another tool that has this fancy or convenient AI summary feature, how do you check to make sure that you're not sharing that with
Yeah.
a publicly available large language model?
It will usually be very clear. You should check which tier you are on. You will be on some
Payment
kind of
tier,
pro or
subscription tier.
enterprise subscription tier,
Yeah.
exactly. And it usually will very clearly in the feature list tell you that it is or is not using your data to train its models or ex where it's exposing your data to. It is the first thing that larger enterprises will typically look for when they are purchasing these things. And it's usually pretty clear in the pricing models.
And
I would also say it. it's really, really important to then look at yourselves in terms of your organization, at what data could potentially be exposed to the AI. So
Mhm.
I think it's also a common thing to then say, okay, great, we bought the upper tier of this product. It's not exposing our data beyond our own organization, but actually, it's much more important to then go back one step and say, well, actually, let's lock down how our data is being exposed to our employees, first of all, so that
Mhm.
they could not inadvertently upload something they should not to an AI tool. So that set of policies around how you organize and manage your own access, networking, least privilege is then the next frontier that you should be looking at before you even think about entrusting the AI tool.
Right, and a lot of people don't realize that. So when you talk about training and even and using a call it a proprietary version of an AI tool because you're paying for the pro or enterprise level, if one employee says, "Remember all of these account numbers for all of these clients," and then they provide all the client names and number and account numbers, and it's trained to remember all of that, it is possible that another employee can say write a summary of the all of our clients and their account numbers, and your AI may spit that out, even if that client, even if that employee
Right.
isn't authorized to have access to that information. Can you
Exactly.
say
Yeah.
more about
So
that as a as an attack surface?
yeah, most organizations now will talk about concepts of least privilege or zero trust,
Yes.
where you are, as a practice, isolating data and users and computing devices from each other,
Hmm.
and assuming that nobody has access unless you are granting it, and that you are granting it in the minimal possible way. And that way you remove the possibility of employees inadvertently accessing devices or information that they should not, and then doing something with it that they should not.
Okay, so give me a example that that lots of people can relate to. So lots of our listeners use Google Workspace. They use it for email, they use it for Google Docs, document sharing, etc., and they use Gemini, which is attached to that. So how can I be sure, or at least a little more comfortable, if I'm the CEO of such an organization and I'm already using the identity and access management tools within Google Workspace to make sure everybody's logging in to Gemini and every other SaaS product that they use. So I've solved that problem, so I can see who's logging into what, and I've got that consolidated within the Google Workspace environment. But how can I be sure that the example I said doesn't happen, where one employee says, "Hey,
Right.
Google Gemini, remember these account numbers," and another employee says, "Give me a summary."
Right. So the word workspace, I think, is doing a lot of the work there. So
Yes.
having the larger that workspace for an individual employee, the more the risk. So it's really, really important to break down the concept of a shared workspace into 1,000 different workspaces, or as granular as possible, so that the amount of information is completely segmented into the narrowest possible slice that you give an employee or set of employees. RealVNC, we use the concept of my organization and sub-organizations. So we allow our customers to break down the way they think about devices and users into a very granular way. So organizations, when they're thinking about shared workspaces, they should think about it in terms of the narrowest possible definition of that as for a given employee. It's really hard because now you have a high proliferation of different systems. Employees are using many, many applications. There's a concept called application sprawl. Uh, the access to those applications can often be decentralized. So folks in a marketing function, sales function, finance function, they all have their own apps that they're using.
Mhm.
Often the administrators of those apps are within that function, not necessarily the CIO or the IT function anymore. So decentralization of access management creates a greater risk. And so I would encourage all IT folks to get as much centralized control over that access as possible, so as to further reduce the risk of um, the information being in different parts of their supposed shared workspace, without visibility in from one central position.
Okay. All right, great. Before my next question, I just want to emphasize to my listeners that RealVNC is not a sponsor. This is not a pay-to-play podcast. I do not now, nor have I ever charged a fee to anybody for being on the show, unless they wanted to be a sponsor, which we talk about at the end of the episode. But if one of my listeners who works for an enterprise in the IT, in an IT role or information security role, or a medium-sized business and they're in charge of all of IT or whatever the case may be, if they were to contact RealVNC and say, "Hey, I heard DIY Cyber Guy episode 87. I'm not sure about my 1,000 employees, who's using what, who's training my professional instance of ChatGPT or what have you, and the possibility that information is being shared unknowingly between people who do not have access to that information. I need RealVNC to lock it down and to help me out." What would RealVNC do in that instance?
Thank you, David. So yeah, we offer a product that allows this zero trust approach. Many SaaS products that you buy will offer this concept so that the access is zero unless it's granted.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the concept of on-premise. So for the last 2 decades, the world's been going more towards the direction of cloud. What we are seeing in industries that we serve anyway is an increasing preference for offline, on-premise controlled environments that are not connected to a cloud anymore.
So
And
good old
so
fashioned data centers in
it
a controlled environment in the middle of the city with high redundancy, et cetera.
yeah, precisely. So it's a very simple but effective way of basically hiding. And you remove an attack surface immediately by saying, well, do you know what? We're just going to do everything from within our own organization. Um, and so this is usually a a really common approach in high security industries.
Mhm.
So that's the first way of reducing attack surface. And thereafter, you can then segment your infrastructure, your organization into different parts, and therefore you further hide the respective parts of your network from each other. And again, reducing another layer of attack surface.
Okay, so in that scenario, a company could still get the full advantage of the large language model that's generally driving a ChatGPT app or Gemini app or any other AI powered app, but you've got your own instance of it. So you're not feeding the generally available, publicly available large language model. You're feeding your own, right?
Exactly.
Now, talk about how that step could actually create a proprietary information or even a competitive advantage for a given company. If you are training your own AI internally as maybe part of your product, whatever your product is that your particular company sells, do you have examples of clients that do that?
So the advantage that gives you is that the training is happening on in a more specific way that's relevant for your organization. So it can give you an advantage because your use case is more prevalent in the training of the large language model. Um, but what you still want to do is leverage incoming knowledge from outside your organization. So you kind of want the traffic to be one way, where you get the benefit of learning from the external environment, but without exposing your information outside.
Is it possible for an actual product or somebody's actual app to tap into that type of siloed or that type of proprietary learning? So, if you happen to be a company that has an AI, one of these AI products that we're talking about that offers it to customers, to clients, can this type of architecture that you're describing, using a data center, taking things off the public cloud and putting it into a private cloud or even an on-premises a security center, if your organization has that, to create a better product or more proprietary product
Yeah,
out of your own data?
absolutely. Some of the largest organizations in the world are adopting this approach where they purchase a proprietary instance for their own organization that is able to learn from the external environment. accelerate its learning from the internal environment, and it makes them get a more efficient and better product. Also makes their employees more productive because they're able to get to insights faster. So some of the large consulting firms, for example, like McKinsey, Deloitte, PwC, they will work in this way where they have their own instance. They're able to actually offer better services to their clients because they're able to learn in a much more efficient, faster way.
That's fantastic. Great advice, great insight, and especially in the age when everybody is accelerating the use of AI, making sure we all understand what's happening with that data, how to protect it, and even how to turn it into an advantage is such a critical thing at this stage because, I mean, this technology is changing the way so many industries even work and operate. And I'd argue faster than any other new technology, including the personal computer itself. The internet itself was never adopted as quickly as nothing's been adopted as quickly as AI related tools in the last few years.
Yeah, it's scary how fast the adoption is happening. Everybody's racing to catch up and to be on the right side of the change so that they can harness the power of it and not be left behind. I think it's creating a stratification of companies that are either catching the wave or missing the wave. So it's in equal parts, I think, really exciting, but also quite scary. So I think educating oneself as to how best to leverage and stay safe in this environment is really, really important.
And keeping on top of things by listening to podcasts like DIY Cyber Guy.
Absolutely.
Couldn't resist. Couldn't resist. Neil, it's been great having you on the episode. Where can people find out more about what you do?
Thanks, David. It's been a pleasure to be on the podcast. Thank you for inviting me. You can check out realvnc.com. RealVNC was the inventor of remote access technology. We have the most secure remote access product globally. Most folks in the tech industry will have used or heard of RealVNC through their careers. I would encourage you to check out our webpage, check out our latest products where we talk all about zero trust on premise, how you can stay safe in modern world. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. My URL is just my name / Neil Gad at the end.
And that's NEILGAD. For those of you who don't know how to spell Neil's name. You can also find all those links, everybody, on DIYCyberGuy.com. Just search for episode 87. Neil, thanks for being here. I can't wait to have you on the show again.
Thank you so much, David.
That's all the time we have today. Remember, for the show notes from this episode, or to listen to any of our past episodes, or to get a free chapter from my book, Digital Habits, just go to DIYCyberGuy.com. And if you want to buy my book, just go to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com and search the keywords Digital Habits 5 Simple Tips. If you have questions or an idea for the show, just email me at questions@DIYCyberGuy.com. And if this show helps you stay safe online, please click the share button and send it to everyone you think we can help. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to DIY Cyber Guy. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this broadcast are for general information only, and we have not knowingly divulged any information that would conflict with any of our non-disclosure or confidentiality agreements. Enjoy the internet safely.